الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد. You know, they say it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to enter paradise. Whenever you see wealth, sometimes on social media, inevitably you're going to find a comment on there that says, well, I wish that person wouldn't do this and he would give all of his money away, or all of her money away. And you get these things over and over again. And also, you hear all the time that we shouldn't be wealthy, that we should be giving all of our money away and just having tawakkul Allah, just having reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's better to be poor than to be rich. To be honest with you, and I'm going to say something very controversial here, but I think majority of the people that actually say that probably have no wealth to begin with, because they have no understanding of what that really means. It's easy for you to say, give your wealth away when you don't have anything to give. But when you have it, then that's when the trial truly starts. If you go back to the early converts of Islam, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were, and most people know this, there were 10 people who were considered what are called the Ashara Mubashara, right? The 10 people who were given the good news of paradise. And these are specific to a certain hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And I think most of you would be able to name them, right? Can I get some shout out of a couple of the names? Besides the four, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. Anybody else? Go ahead. Sorry? Abdurrahman bin Auf. One more and I'll stop there. Anybody? Zubair bin Awam. Okay. Now, if you look at those things, one time Imam Suhaib Webb said that if you put the Ashar Mubashara into the Forbes list of the 100 most rich, wealthiest people in all of Makkah, you're going to find about 5 of them, about half of them actually would have been the wealthiest in Makkah. Right? For example, Abu Bakr, independently wealthy even before he became a Muslim. Uthman bin Affan, same thing. Zubair bin Awam, when he died with a lot of wealth. Abdurrahman bin Auf, all of these people were very, very wealthy. So how could it be that we have very, very wealthy people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that these are guaranteed paradise, and yet we have in the Muslim community people telling us that all we have to do is be poor? That doesn't make any sense. So one of the things that happens is that, back up a little bit, one of the things that's guaranteed for us in our in the womb that we are when we're in with our mothers, one of them is that whether we're going to be male or female. That's something we can't control. That's just what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. The second one is sustenance, rizqi. Rizqi is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already written for you, and we have no control over exactly how much that is going to be. It's something that's guaranteed. And then you have to ask the question, well, if that's something that's guaranteed, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punish us if He made us of those people that are wealthy? Does that make any sense? Right? So there's nothing wrong with being rich or poor, but rather how you earn it and how you spend it. So this is what I want to talk about in my talk today. And the ultimate goal of this obviously is to be able to relate it back to the heart. Inshallah. So now we come to the first part, which is how we earn it. How we actually earn the money that we have. And it must be something that's halal. You cannot be earning something haram and be considered in one of these qualities that I'm talking about. There's a man, here's a story, the Prophet ﷺ said, there was a man, and he was in the middle of the desert, and he was hungry, he was tired, he was thirsty, and so he lifted his hands up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he asked Allah, says, oh Allah, deliver me from this situation. And then the Prophet ﷺ said to the companions, he said, but for this man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't answer him. Now let's take a step back, right? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about the traveler? That his du'as will be answered. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about the person that's in need? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer his prayers. Right? You can go down the list, and he checked off all the boxes of why, if he made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that his prayers would have been answered. And yet for this man, they were not. And so the companions, they asked the Prophet ﷺ, because they were bewildered as well. They didn't Ya Rasulullah, why were his prayers not answered? And the Prophet ﷺ responded back and said, how could they be? If the clothes that he earned something in haram, and then the clothes that he wore were haram, the food that he ate was haram, until his entire material existence became something that was haram. So this part of it, when you talk about the concept of risk, it's a very, very deep concept if you understand it. It's guaranteed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not only guaranteed for Muslims, it's guaranteed for all of mankind. Every single human being that's born already is guaranteed the risk that they're going to get. So do you know, let me give you an example of what that means if you kind of put it into perspective, right? That people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, or maybe some people in the audience here, right? They would have been rich whether they were entrepreneurs or whether they were drug dealers. Think about that for a second. That you have your independent wealth, whatever it is that you do in your life, you're going to be guaranteed that. So if you have that guaranteed, take it out of your mind as how you're going to get it. It's the sustenance will be provided from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What we have to do is we have to strive for that risk that we actually have. Right? Our goal is to seek out that risk, but remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be the one that's going to be providing it for us. And that's why when you look at Surah Al-Jum'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, He says, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَانْتَشِرُوا. That after you finish your salah, your prayer, right, disperse through the land. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about dispersing through the land? He says, وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. That's seeking out the bounty of Allah. Seeking out the bounty of Allah. وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And remember Allah often that you might be successful. So the point here is not that you're always in the masjid praying. It's that you go out there and seek the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the caveat is that you're always remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're actually doing it. That's what we have to be able to think about. So how you earn that money is very, very important for us to be able to have a very, very sound heart. And I'll get to that a little bit later. Number two, as for spending it, there's two aspects to this idea of spending. Number one, Imam Ghazali, in his book Khuluq al-Muslim, the character of a Muslim, he says in there, and I quote, don't be a slave to your desires, because you weren't created for that purpose. And then he mentioned an ayah in Surah Muhammad, he says, certainly Allah will admit those who believe and do righteous deeds to gardens underneath which rivers flow, while those who disbelieve enjoy themselves and eat as cattle eat, and the fire will be their abode. I want to focus here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directly relating, right, those who enjoy themselves or extravagant and those type of things, to an'am, which is cattle. Now you might think to yourself, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing that? Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relating people who enjoy themselves without any kind of shame or any kind of resist to stop them? Why do they do that? You know, there's certain type of animals that if you let them graze in the land, they will eat until they die, because they don't have a mechanism in their body to be able to stop themselves from eating. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us this, that's what he's relating to. That there are people in this world that will completely destroy themselves. They have no mechanism of turning off that desire for when enough is enough. When too much is too much. They don't have that, so they're going to basically consume themselves to death. Whether it be material things, whether it be food, whether it be whatever it is, they're just going to do that. And whether it be in alcohol, people dying from overdosing on drugs, people dying from being able to become drunk, and that, all of these things are there because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is relating to, right? But being extravagant, now coming to the other part, being extravagant is something that different than enjoying the good things in your life. Extravagance is different than enjoying the good things in life. So when I speak of extravagance, what I'm talking about is somebody who's a spendthrift. right? A person who just spends for the sake of an unmet desire, whatever that desire might be, right? His desire is not for the thing that he purchases, so it's not a need, it may be not even a want, right? It might be just something he or she just has no desire, no reason why they're doing it, but they just end up doing it, right? And maybe it's to cover up the depression that they have, maybe it's to be able to be seen of people, like I have this, and I have this, and I have this, those type of things, but it's really not anything about fulfilling a necessity or a need. It's purely about want and extravagance. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about extravagance. It's not that you don't enjoy the good things in your life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ, that indeed the spendthrift are the brothers of the devils. وَكَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ لِرَبِّهِ كَفُورًا, that and ever has Shaitan been to his Lord ungrateful. This is the definition of mubadirin, are the ones who are spendthrift, they're extravagant, they just do it for no reason, but just to be able to do it and to be able to be seen of men. Now, as for being spendthrift, right, this leads to something that's wasteful. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, He says, أَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. He says, eat and drink, but you do not be wasteful. Right, eat and drink, but do not be wasteful. But how do you, how do you know, and that's the question you have to ask yourself, how do you know whether or not you're being, something that you want is just a normal, or you are being a spendthrift? How do you know the difference between the two? Right? And my answer to that is, it's relative. It's relative whether or not you're being a spendthrift or you're doing something just to be able to enjoy the good things in your life. Someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed with a lot of wealth, for them, their threshold for being spendthrift is a lot more than someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed with a little bit less. The problem doesn't come in, you're going to earn the money, give it away, not worry about why you're earning the money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to provide you whatever it is that you're going to be provided for. What we have to figure out is, how are we going to deal with the money after we actually have it, right? And there's another aspect to the spending of the money as well. And that is, you have to give out from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. As I mentioned to you earlier, right, going back to my earlier part of my talk when I said that there were the 10 that were guaranteed paradise, and I mentioned that they were very, very wealthy, the one thing to keep in mind is that, as they say, they kept their wealth on their sleeve, not on their heart. What does that mean? Right? When it came time for them to give money, when it came time to be able to give, they gave willingly. They had no attachment to whatever it is that they had. Right? So the person that is the opposite of that is that whenever somebody asks for, as the people said earlier, $5, whenever they ask for a fundraiser, those type of things, these are the people with means and yet they refuse to give. These are the people that they wear their wealth in their heart. But the ones that wear it on their sleeve, they know that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave it, He's going to take it. So might as well give it and get rewarded for it, rather than having to wait for a day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes it, basically ends up taking it away from us. Abu Bakr, just to give you 2 examples of what I'm talking about. Abu Bakr, and there's many, many examples even in the life of Abu Bakr in regards to this. He was living in Mecca when very, very early on, he was negotiating for the freeing of a slave. He was negotiating for the freeing of a slave. And after he had bought the slave and had freed him from his master, the former owner of the slave, he told him, Ya Abu Bakr, I would have given you the slave for half of whatever you gave. Now he's trying to rub it in for Abu Bakr. He's trying to tell him, oh, you wasted your money by being able to do that. I would have allowed it if you paid half or whatever that you paid for the slave that I have. And now look at Abu Bakr's response. Because he knows whatever he did was sadaqah. He turned to them and he said, I would have paid double whatever it is that you asked for. Right? Because in the sadaqah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no limit to what it is, right? Because sadaqah, it wipes out sins like water puts out fire. This is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That sadaqah wipes out sins like water puts out fire. So in fact, sadaqah is not for other people. It's not even for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's for ourselves. That's what we have to keep in mind. When we have the wealth and we're giving it, we're doing it for ourselves, not for anybody else. Number 2, Abdurrahman bin Auf. Right? With all the wealth that he had, the one that he accumulated in Mecca, then he lost it, then he went to Medina, then he gained it back in a very, very short amount of time. You know, there's a story that in the Battle of Tabuk, he gave a tree of gold as a donation to the Prophet ﷺ for people to be able to fund that war. A tree of gold, and that was an exorbitant amount of money at the time. But there was nothing, they wore their wealth on their sleeves, and they could easily do that because they didn't care about the money they had. They knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the provider of them. And I want to leave you with one story, and then I'll move to my next point. You know, there's a story of Musa alayhi salam. And Musa alayhi salam, you know, they say about Bani Israel, that Musa give da'wah for so long, that if it doesn't contradict anything in Islam, then whatever story you hear from Bani Israel regarding Musa alayhi salam, we can accept it. So this is one of those stories. So Musa alayhi salam was in a village, and he was giving da'wah, calling people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there was a beggar that was on the road, and so he came up to Musa, and he said, Ya Musa, you know, make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he gives me a lot of wealth. And if he gives it to me, then I'm going to give half of my wealth away. And Musa alayhi salam turns to the beggar and he says, okay. And he goes on. The next day comes around, and again Musa is delivering his da'wah, and the same beggar comes up to him again. He says, Ya Musa, please make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he gives me wealth. And if he does that, then I promise that I'm going to give half of it away. And again, Musa looks at the beggar and he says, okay. And he doesn't do anything. The third day, when Musa is giving da'wah again, the beggar comes up again. And he says, Ya Musa, you know, make a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he gives me wealth. And if he gives me wealth, then I promise to Allah that I'm going to give half of my wealth away. And again, Musa, you know, he says fine because he realizes the beggar is not going to go away. So he makes a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give this person some wealth. And then he moves on to another town, and he continues to do his da'wah, and then a couple of years later, he comes back to the same town again. And when he comes back, there's a little bit of difference in that town, and he can't really figure out what that difference is. And so he starts asking people around. And when he asked people around, they said, you know, there used to be a very, very poor person that lived in our village. And then all of a sudden, he came across a lot of wealth. And so with half of that wealth, he built himself a palace. And with half of that wealth, he made like a diwan, like a dining hall, where he asked everybody to come, and he gave out from whatever wealth that he had. And then he did that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with more wealth. And so he took half of that, and half of it he built another hall for people to come and be able to get fed. And so when Musa went and he investigated and he found out that was the case, he was speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he said, Ya Allah, you know, I asked you to give him wealth, and you gave him a lot of this wealth. What happened? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned to Musa alayhi salam and he says that there is no way that my servant will be more generous than me. There is no way that a servant will be more generous than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to have competition with anybody for wealth, have it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Give your wealth away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you more. Right? So this is a matter of earning it, spending it on yourself and your family, but then also at the same time being able to spend it in fi sabilillah, in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in sadaqah and those type of things. Now once you don't feel guilty about being wealthy, and you earn your money in a halal way, you spend it of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, has provided you with, both for yourself and for other people, and you practice these things, then you become somebody who is truly wealthy. Because you have what is called contentment within your heart. And this is something that all of us as mankind, we are trying to strive towards. This idea of contentment. How do you have sukoon, have sakina within your lives, within your heart, all of those different types of things. The Prophet ﷺ said, riches do not mean having a great amount of wealth. Right? But real wealth is being self-content. Real wealth is being self-content. Whatever you have, you're content with it. right? You have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you know He will provide, and you're happy with whatever it is that you have. You know, I'll give you an example, two examples. One of them is the bird that wakes up in the morning and it goes out to seek the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That bird doesn't know what the risk is going to be. He goes out, he searches for it, he gets the risk, he comes back, and he's doing this every single day for the rest of his or her life. The same thing with children. You know, last week I was in Myanmar, in Rakhine State, and one of the most amazing things that I saw was in the most horrific of situations, in the most dirtiest of places, in the most oppressive of areas. You know who the people were that were smiling? It was the little children. Because whatever they have, they're content with. You give them a stick, they'll play with it. You give them a grain of rice, they'll eat it. But they're content with whatever they have. This is the nature that we as adults need to be in as well. That the risk is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will provide as long as I earn it in a halal way. I spend it on me and my family, and then I give of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been able to give us. Right? And this is what we as Muslims are striving for our entire life. Right? To be able to go through our life and eventually be satisfied, have sakina, be satisfied with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And when you attain this satisfaction, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, He says, يَوْمَ لَا تَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. The day when wealth and children will not benefit. They're not going to benefit anything. Your wealth and your children are not going to benefit you. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَّا مَنْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. And then He says, but only those who come to Allah with a sound heart. What is this qalb salim? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the last ayah. That we're striving for wealth. We're striving for, at that time, more children. Maybe this day and age, some of us are striving for more children as well. I don't know. It looks like from the population of Muslims, that's usually the case. That we're striving for wealth and for children, but that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that's not the goal. The goal is not to be able to strive for the wealth because that's taken care of. The goal is not for the children, I'll take care of that as well. Your goal is to be able to have a qalb salim when you come towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, Ya ayyuhal mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbika radiyatan mardiyah, fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. Right? Oh, you who are at peace, Ya ayyuhal mutma'inna. Itminan is something that that's itminan. Right? And then what is that person with itminan? Is the one who is pleased with Allah and Allah is pleased with him or her. That is what itminan is, and that's what we're all striving for. If you want to have that itminan, you don't strive for the wealth. You don't strive for the children. You strive for your own heart. You strive for that peace that all of us are beginning to be able to strive for. Now I have about 5 minutes left, and I promised them I would go exactly on time, because I know, when we're talking about sadaqah, time is also a sadaqah. So the fact that you're giving me your time, alhamdulillah, you're giving me the sadaqah. The least that I can do is to respect that I will be either finishing on time or earlier. Inshallah, that being said, I'm not going to go over time. But I did want to leave you with one final thought. That when you cannot talk about this topic of wealth and money without keeping in mind one story in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. One time the Prophet ﷺ walked into the masjid, and it was during the time of Asr prayer, roughly around the time of Asr prayer, and he saw in the masjid a companion by the name of Abu Umama. And he turned to Abu Umama and he said, Ya Abu Umama, why are you in the masjid when it's not even time for the prayer? Brothers and sisters, even if I just stopped here, that would be enough for you for this talk. Why are you in the masjid when it's not even time for the prayer? Why? Implying, why are you not out there seeking the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And so Abu Umama responded back and he told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, worries and debts, Ya Rasulullah. This is what I have. I have worries and I have debts, and usually those things are related. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he responded back and he said, Ya Abu Umama, should I not tell you of words which you say, that if you say them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take away your worries and pay off your debts for you? Of course, Abu Umama said, Ya Rasulullah, of course, Bala. Tell me what that is. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, in the morning and in the evening. Right, so twice a day. you say this dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hamli wal-hazan, wa na'udhu bika min al-ajli wal-kasal, wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl, wa na'udhu bika min ghalabat ad-dayn wa qahr al-rijal. The Prophet ﷺ said in the morning and in the evenings, recite this dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hamli wal-hazan. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from worry and grief. وَنَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنَ الْعَجْزِ وَالْكَسَلِ. That I seek refuge in you from incapacity and laziness. Laziness from what? Laziness from going out there and seeking the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَنَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنَ الْجُبْنِ وَالْبُخْلِ. And I seek refuge in you from cowardice and miserliness. Right? And those things are related. Miserliness means that you don't want to give from the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Why? Because you're scared. You're scared that if you give away, you're not going to have enough. It's a type of cowardice. You're a coward if you don't give money away. أعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل ونعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. That I seek refuge in you. I seek refuge with you from being heavily in debt and being overcome by men. Because that's exactly what happens when you get into debt. That there is somebody who's on top of you. Either always asking you for the money, you're always worried about giving the money, all of those different types of things. You want to get rid of all of these things, you recite this dua and you work actively towards implementing. One, how will you earn the money? It must be in a halal way. And part of that earning, by the way, which I didn't mention, is that once you do have that wealth, what do you do with that wealth? How do you save it? You have to save it in a halal way as well. So it's not only earning it, but also saving it. And the next one is, how do you spend it? And the spending in a halal way means that you're spending it on your family and you're spending it on giving sadaqah to the poor. Speaking about spending it to the family and leaving, having wealth, and I'll leave this out about a minute left or so. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, when was on his deathbed after one of the battles that he had fought, and he went on the deathbed, the Prophet came to visit him, and he told him, he said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm a man with a lot of wealth, and I only have one daughter that I leave behind. Can I give all of my wealth away? The Prophet said, no. Remember what I said in the Quranic ayah? He said, وَإِذَا أَنْفَقُوا لَا يُسْرِفُوا وَلَا يَقْتُلُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوْمًا. You have to carry a middle way between the two. So he asked the Prophet, can I give all of my wealth away? He said, no, you cannot. Can I give half of my wealth away? No, you cannot. Can I give a third of my wealth away? He said, yes, but less is better. Because it's better for you to leave your family with something to survive on, rather than leaving them with nothing and being people who beg for money. Right? This is the idea. So my final kind of thought that I want to leave you with is that anybody who tells you that wealth is an antithesis of Islam, don't listen to them. We have examples throughout the Quran and Hadith, the history of Islam, that speaks to the otherwise. It's not whether you have the wealth or not, it's how you earn it, how you spend it, and how you give it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who listen and obey, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who have no worries within our hearts, that we are content with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, but whatever He does give us, we spend it on our families, and we spend it on the poor.